ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Check this out, we got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and welcome to the Breakfast Bankroll. Scotty Webb and myself, re-entry Monday, as it's the last re-entry Monday with me and Scott talking the NFL. Headliner today, Seattle's defense reigns supreme. A shot of Kenneth Walker blue to the champs. Man, I was watching that game and I was thinking of Scotty a lot. We did 2 weeks of shows, and Jesus, listen, we're right, we're wrong, we're spot on, we're completely off. And man, he was talking about Windows, the defense. I'm not going to get into all this, of course, but hats off to Mr. Webb. Hats off to the Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champs. Mr. Lucky sent a tweet out yesterday. It stated that I spoke to him in week 6 and told him Seattle was the best team in the NFL, and they were. No debate. It's not even up for debate. It's not even up for anything. Their defense, Mr. Darnold did enough. And Jibber, I think, was hurt for a quarter. Didn't matter. You could tell right away. I was having flashbacks of bury the Bears and here the 85 Chicago Bears defense when they beat us, 41-3 or something when the Fridge scored. And that's where my head was. That's how dominant that defense was. But congrats. And before we bring Scotty on, congrats to the New England Patriots. An amazing turnaround. What Mike Vrabel did this year is he brought culture. He brought back an identity, from back-to-back 4-13s to 17-4, including the playoffs and the Super Bowl. 2 losses since October 1st. Unfortunately, someone has to lose the Super Bowl, and it was the Patriots. So first and foremost, a shout-out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download the app. It is free. AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Steaks, seafood, chops, appetizers, wine, and more. Terry Smith's got it all. Head on over to AtlantaSteaksandSeafood.com. Without further ado, oh, by the way, why the hat? It's only 11 degrees out here. You should have seen my dogs walking on this running. Anyways, let's bring him in, Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, champ?
Hey, man, it's always warm and sunny in Florida.
Yeah, I know. Someday, trust me. Listen, I don't have enough those corny sayings, but what I will say very simply before I turn it over to you, I like the say lipstick on a pig. Okay. Uh, 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 the final exam, uh, uh, band aids. You know, you get exposed. Eventually, you're going to get exposed, and you know, I talked about Notre Dame versus Alabama in the football championships, and that's kind of what we saw. Listen, uh, uh, um, it wasn't the Chargers defense, it wasn't the Texans defense, it wasn't the Broncos defense with Stidham. This was a whole nother level. And listen, locally, the experts, I wanted to listen. I was more by halftime. I couldn't wait to listen to the experts. Teddy Johnson's one of them. A few of the local nerds as well for the recap. One of them, Phil Perry. And listen, I'm not dogging you, Phil, but sometimes you got to give credit where credit was due. And Teddy used the word "great" as the Seattle team, and Phil wouldn't go that far because he says to be great, you have to be good on both sides. And I think it was evident early that Mike McDonald and the offense knew Sam Darnold didn't have to be great. And let me just say, in that first quarter specifically, there was a couple of early throws, almost pick sixes. They were this close. And Kenneth Walker was like Skittles on steroids. The patience, it was like watching Le'Veon Bell. And I think it was in that fourth quarter, that one that he just left, right. Oh, there's the hole. And he busted it. So again, pure dominance. You had 2 weeks to prepare, Josh McDaniels. And then you had a whole half hour after Bad Bunny. And I won't even I am not going down that rabbit hole. No pun intended there. But you come out 3 and out again, and your third down play to Booty on a comebacker, and he was out of bounds. I mean, Josh, I don't want to give you enough because I think you had a great year, but you talked about the windows, and Drake made one throw about a 20-25 yarder over the middle between 4 guys. I think it was to Matt Collins. He completed one in that window play. But Scott, the stage is yours.
Yeah, well, I don't think that the final outcome of the game, because of the fourth quarter had a lot of the points in it, was kind of the way I expected the game to go after 3 quarters. What was it, 12-0 after 3 quarters? So I think the game actually went the way I thought it was going to go. I mean, I sat here and said that for 2 days. I said, look, it's going to be a low-scoring, controlled game. I think defense discipline kind of game. They're going to limit the number of explosives. I mean, that's exactly what you saw. But on both sides, I knew that was going to be that way on both sides. But here's what I don't think people, your guy said something about you got to be great on both sides of the ball. Well, let's be real here. The real part of this is Seattle kicked 5 field goals and scored a touchdown on offense. Well, they certainly scored one on a weird whatever that fumble, interception, whatever it was, and they ran it back, right? So that's 6 scoring drives. They had the ball 12 times, so they scored half the time they had the ball. Now, did they get down there and score touchdowns and all that stuff? They didn't do really good in the red zone. But they had 6 scoring drives. At the beginning of the game, it took I mean, I can go look. I've got it right here. I think it was. Come on, it went dead on me for a second. Reload the page. But I think that they had the ball like New England had the ball, because there's 3-and-outs punts, and stuff like that all the time. But kind of by both sides, so they didn't have these 7-8 minute drives you see with some of these teams. So they had the ball quite a bit, more drives than normal. So when you think about the drive count, I think they had the ball 13, 14 times. they scored twice. And that was kind of, and I don't know, I don't want to take anything away from New England. I don't. So that's, the game's already mopped up by then. And I don't know how much defense that Seattle was playing at that point in time, whatever. Drake made a couple good passes in those spots, right? That's that one you're talking about where he did make that in the windows throw, and then he got that one over the defensive back for a touchdown. So he made a couple of good throws on that drive. But when I really see the breakdown of this game and kind of look at it, it's sort of how I thought it was going to go. Now, shame on me. One of the prop bets you could have made and should have made was the sack rate. I think the number was 3.5. I think was the prop bet over 3.5 sacks for Seattle. The writing was all over the wall for that. And I didn't give that out. That was something I think you should have done. But my bets were good. I mean, I was under 46. I was -4.
You can thank the center for that one. Make sure you send him a Christmas card.
Yeah, I know. I saw that and I was like, what the hell just happened there? So, but if you watched it back, he actually did hold him. I mean,
No, he did.
he grabbed the guy and so. And then you had what was the other one? The other one I made was -6.5 the outline. So I hit all three. And to be honest, I was never even worried about the under. And then the fourth quarter happens. So I think, and I had thought that this was a mismatch, and but I did think that New England's defense was playing well enough at the end of the season here that it was going to make it competitive. Well, I think they did for the most part. I just think that, look, I know there's a lot of people in New England that watch our show, and I know there's a lot of people in New England that like the Patriots. And Drake May is going to be a good quarterback. But from what I saw in film and what I saw some of these guys breaking, that Kurt Warner tape had me going. And then when I watched the game, I saw it. It's just he's developing as a quarterback. So give him that time to develop. Let him become that guy that can beat these kind of defenses, and then hope that you have some kind of offensive coordinator. And I'm not going to tell you that the guy for New England's bad because he's been to 10 Super Bowls and all the other stuff. But I don't know that he was always put in a fair position, and I don't know that he was always put in the right spots to make the good reads. At the same time as that, the opposing defense can make you see ghosts, if you want to call it that, and then freak you out a little bit. So anyway, Super Bowl, as far as I'm concerned, kind of went the way I thought it was going to go. It wraps up a super wonderful year for me on the NFL. I ended up with 61% win rate, which sort of matches the college football. So football was great. I am working really a lot, probably more hard than people think, on baseball already. So interesting to note, Jeff. The Red Sox made a trade this morning. So the Red Sox.
I wasn't going to use that as a headline. We're definitely going to get to that. The funny thing, going back to the Pats here, is in the offseason, they wanted Ronnie Stanley from Baltimore to shore up the left tackle to protect Drake May, and there's going to be so much talk in the offseason. And they asked Drake about his shoulder. He goes, they shot it up. I can't feel it. So again, he was injured. We know he was injured. But again, there were throws out there to be made that, just to move the chains. One of the things I clearly stated early and often, and I made sure I understood, for the Patriots to have won yesterday, they were going to have to control the ball. They were going to have to move the chains. They were going to have to win the turnover battle, which was 3-0. I did have a prop Seattle defense scoring, and they did. The fact of the matter is everything they needed to do, they didn't do. So the off season, there was no one wide receiver that could get separation. So are they gonna, do they go to full panic mode and make a trade to get AJ Brown to get that diva? Does Diggs come back? But the real concern, and listen, I love Will Campbell to death. I love his mentality. I love everything about him. But if you look in the playoffs, 5 sacks against the Chargers, 5 against Houston, 5 against Denver, 7 yesterday. The left side was a problem, and here's Seattle only rushing 4, and then they only blitz 13% of the times. And I use this correlation. I don't know. You're going to call me crazy on this one. Did you see or remember the movie Lionheart with Van Damme?
I don't remember. I don't remember many of his movies.
So he was a street fighter, and he would go to these underground places and he would fight all these monsters. And he was, skinny, but he would, the big underdog, and no one knew about him. He'd win and win. Well, he got set up for the finale against this monster. Okay, and his team set him up, and they were betting against him because they knew he had met his limit. Hey, listen, great run, kid, but we're going on this horse. And Van Damme pulled let's say an oblique muscle during training. And so he's in the ring with this guy, and they're just sparring, and this huge monster hits him in that spot, and he sees Van Damme go like this, and then he goes, and he just then for the next 10 minutes just went and attacked and attacked and attacked. It was like the Seattle defense early. The Pats couldn't stop this, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And the easy thing is to take Will Campbell. They had 2 rookies, the first time in Super Bowl history, where you got 2 rookie bookends, left tackle, right tackle, and made it to the Super Bowl. And everyone's going to focus on Will Campbell. Alligator arms. He's too short, and he's the 4th pick. He's not a left tackle. Well, left tackles don't grow on trees. So unless you're going to go out and spend a boatload of money, or unless you're going to now take him and move him to somewhere else and then try to upgrade. If I'm the Patriots, I know I got Drake May, Scotty, I am doing nothing but figuring out that offensive line, number 1. Number 2, I think they got some young developing wide receivers. Maybe they do need a diva in there unless they bring Diggs back. And number 3, Mike Vrabel's got to be choking on his coffee, because I talked about this early in the year. Christian Gonzalez was not one of his guys. Christian Gonzalez is getting set to get paid, and then during OTAs and stuff, he pulled the hammy and was out 8 to 9 weeks. And Mike Vrabel is starting to get pissed. Like, dude, we need you on this field. And I said to myself, if water gun to my head before the Super Bowl, if Vrabel not going to pay this guy, he's not. He's going to say, all right, next man up, and we're going to figure it out. Well, after Sunday, Mike, you might want to retract that thought process, because Christian Gonzalez needs to get paid.
Well, he certainly defended two pretty big passes in that game. So I think that he had some value there, and what he was doing on the defensive side of the ball. I think that that defense found its own identity and found a lot of stuff. Now I think that one of the issues with that defense, though, is that their blitz weight was over 50% in that game. It was like 60% in that game. Their normal blitz rate is 41% or whatever. So I think that every game has its own persona, and every game has its own things. And when you think about when we watched Seattle and the Rams play, every one of those games were just a different night game. One was a low-scoring game. One went into overtime. They both scored 30 points, and all that stuff. So every game is a little different how they do stuff. But if I really think about the defense, I think 2 things. I think one, that's blitzing too much, because that puts your other guys in bad spots. And then I think two, I just think as a just general study, this season, there's going to be a lot of NFL teams go, what did this Seattle Seahawks defense do? Because as I tried to explain beforehand, the mentality of what they did, that having a 4-man front is their normal stuff. They always had a 4-man front. All season long, they had a 4-man front. It's the linebackers and the mixed breed linebackers, if you want to call them that, where they ended up having 5 or 6 defensive backs, just as a normal base defense. And then they can blitz those guys and do all this stuff. When you can blitz a cornerback like Weatherspoon and he comes flying in there and gets 2 sacks, we saw it in the game. Comes flying in there and gets 2 sacks, and you're worried about your cornerback with coverage. Well, you got another defensive back. You got 2 of them back there. You got 3 of them back there. So they can do all kinds of crazy personnel things. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams study that package and try to figure out, well, how can we replicate that? Because that's what the NFL is. It's how are they successful? Let's copy it. Well, you got to have the right guys. You got to have the horses and the manpower to do the things you got to do. Like, some of these NFL teams are not going to have a defensive line that can win with 4 guys. So you've got to figure some of that out. But I think you're going to see a big study in NFL defense in the offseason about what Seattle did, and what I heard Chris Collinsworth, and I know a lot of people don't like Chris Collinsworth. I like Chris Collinsworth, but he said, and I was yelling at him. He goes, well, they're just playing zone defense. Well, no shit. That's what they do. They play zone defense like, I don't know, 85% of the time that they're playing defense. And that's because we talked about it. They got so many guys that can cover every inch of the field in a zone where they don't have to go try to match up man to man. And they don't have to worry about, man to man, you get these guys that do like crossing routes and they do a lot of stuff to make pick routes. You don't have to worry about that in a zone because they just trade them off. Well, that guy's going that way. Well, he becomes your guy. Well, that guy's coming this way. Well, he becomes my guy. They just switch them up. And I think that, when you start to think about how the stuff happens and where things go, I thought Chris Collinsworth made a couple of pretty good statements in the game saying, hey, look, it's simple reads. Well, yeah, they're simple reads if you want to call them that, but you got to have zone coverage beaters if you want to call them that. And then if you're going to throw deep, you got to give your guy enough protection, and that's the mix. The mix is, if you want to try to beat the Seahawks, you're going to have to figure out how to protect your quarterback, run the right routes, do different things. And when we talked about this game, I thought what was going to happen was they were going to have to dink and dunk, and that was going to become the running game. I was really surprised at how well New England actually did run the ball, to be honest. I thought they gave up on that. I thought they ran the ball pretty well. So I thought they could have got just like what Seattle did. Seattle got behind their running game, and that kind of opened up things for other things for them. I thought New England didn't really stay with the running game, and they were getting 4 yards a crack. That's pretty good against this defense. So we run the ball 4 times for run the ball 4 yards 3 times. That's a first down. So Jeff, I think they only had 4 first downs until they got that one by penalty, made 5, and then I don't know what happened in the fourth quarter. So it's just how things work, where study of stuff happens. A different type of format of defense is going to be aligned in some of these places, but you can't do that without the manpower to go with it. Now you're seeing a lot of stuff from who's now free agents and who's not, and who re-signability and stuff like that for the Seahawks and different things. I really think that this is a team that was so good on defense that they get shorted as a quality great team in the ranking history of the league. And that was my fault too. I didn't think they were that good. But they are. They're one of I didn't say they're the best. They're one of the best NFL football teams to ever play the game. That's what they are. And I don't think that they were given that credit in this game, especially before the game. Maybe afterwards they will, but before the game they weren't given that. And well, Sam Darnold this and this guy, that guy, this. Look, they were one of the best football teams to ever play the game, and they went out and they really showed the mismatch, and it was a mismatch. So anyway, as far as I'm concerned, hey, they're going to be doing the shorts and t-shirts thing pretty soon with the guys running around and jumping up and down and seeing how many jumping jacks they can do, and how much weight they can lift, and how fast they can run a 40-yard dash. Then you got the draft and stuff like that. That's kind of when football starts for me, is more when the draft comes, because you got to sit there and go, like I think New England had a great offseason. They went out and had a great draft, and they had a great offseason in terms of bringing guys in. Well, let's see what other teams do that this coming year. Who has the money to spend this coming year, stuff like that. The underwear Olympics. That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. So football is going to be drama. It's going to be all kinds of this and soap opera and stuff. And then you're going to have the draft, and then you're going to have, okay, well, this is when the preseason starts, and and all this stuff. So I like it. But I'm going to be knee deep, and I won't be knee deep. I'll probably be up to here deep, and all kinds of baseball stuff. So
It is definitely a copycat league, and I can just imagine all the defensive coordinators today thinking, all right, how do we emulate that? How do we copy that? And if you don't have and they brought it up, well, 4 horses to block up and defeat 5 monsters in front of you, and that's what Seattle did there. And Scotty, I was thinking out loud, and we talked about the Rams. Seattle was the Super Bowl. We had talked about that at length, and thinking outside the box, realistically, I think, and me, I definitely would have been on the Rams side against the Pats. The Rams would have been an easier matchup for the Pats, I think, because of that Rams defense was leaking some severe oil late. That Rams Patriots rematch of the Super Bowls might have actually been that last one with the ball 31-30 look.
Yeah, because the way that their defense plays, and there's not, how do I say it? The uniqueness to their defense is not there. That they just going to go out and try to beat you, and New England's got enough players that they can combat that, and they've got a quarterback that can combat. It'll be, hey, this is the AFC kind of MVP quarterback against the NFC kind of MVP quarterback. Let's see who wins, and who's going to throw the ball well, and then what offensive coordinator is going to do enough to get the guys open. So I think that's kind of how that game would have went out. Now, I think that I would have liked New England's defense better than I would have liked the Rams' defense at the end of the season there. In the middle of the season, I probably would have said I like the Rams' defense. But as things kind of have evolved and where they've gone to and the different things, I think that how do I say this in a real good way? I think that the New England defense had masked how good they really are. And what I mean by that is they got better and better and better, and they were holding teams to not very many points. And then, as the competition level improved, and I know that you can say the weather and all that stuff, but just think about it from a different level. And I know the weather's going to have stuff to do with it. You can't go out there and play in the snow and do whatever. But at the same time, some teams do that. They go out and play in the snow and can do whatever they want to just as well as they can do in other things. So I think as we think about the New England Patriots, I think that and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way in any way, shape, or form, but I think a lot of the fans got false hope that they were better than what they really are. And at the same time that I say that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that team. Look, we say this a lot in the NFL, not in the NFL, in Major League Baseball. Teams arrive sometime a little bit too early, and I think if I was in New England and a fan of New England, and if at the beginning of the season you would have told me they make the playoffs but lose and they don't make it to the Super Bowl and whatever, you'd be happy with that. And then it's a developmental thing the next time. Of course, the fantasy fairy world comes along and they make it to the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden, holy shit, we got a chance. You never really had a chance before you went into this game. I mean, I'm just honestly saying. Anyway.
Lastly, you talked about the zones, and I go back for decades. The one stubborn team every year was the Pittsburgh Steelers that would play zone against Tom Brady, and it was fish in a barrel. And again, for the most part, the Steelers never had a defense or a scheme like Seattle did, but anyone dare try play zone on Mr. Brady. It was just fish in a barrel. And Drake May is not Tom Brady. And I like how you equated, you go from, 4-13 back-to-back years to the Super Bowl. And it was a storybook run. It was the fact that you started 2-2. It was a fact since October, after the 2-2, then you go 15-2. Let me see. You play the Chargers. Oh, actually, let's backtrack. You don't have to worry about Mahomes. You don't have to worry about Burrow. You don't have to worry about Lamar Jackson. And now let's do the playoff run. Let me see. The Chargers, no left tackle, no right tackle.
Quarterback with a broken hand almost.
Broken hand. And then in comes the Texans, where C.J. Stroud was just puking the week before, and he puked again. And then, oh, by the way, the Bills get picked off. So now no Josh Allen. And then as you get ready for Denver, oh, by the way, Bo Nix is out for the year. And again, it was a storybook season for them, almost like scripted by Hollywood. The Pats are definitely back in. And Mike Vrabel is very disappointed, but true professional at the podium after. Someone says, was it a valuable year? And he goes, it's only valuable if you now learn from your mistakes and you don't make them happen again. And they got the number one schedule next year. So there's no cupcakes, there's no unicorns. You're gonna have a target on your back. And the fact of the matter is everyone's now gunning for the AFC champs. And the fact of the matter is you go 14-3 this year regular season. Well, you would have earned it. And again, a lot of work to do there. Congrats to the Pats. I'm going to transition. The NFC season is officially over, as Russell says, as we await for the underwear Olympics and the combines, the free agency, and the draft. Red Sox. Okay, you're right. They make a trade today, and I got to preface this. Caleb Durbin. So let's backtrack for a second. Let's go back to last year, Scotty. Rafael Devers is your third baseman. You go sign Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is your third baseman. Now, we were taught last year we have the next coming of Marcelo Meyer, Kristen Campbell. So now we got the leader in the veteran leadership with Bregman and Devers. Devers becomes a malcontent. Salary dump. We get Kyle Harrison. We get Jordan Hicks. They're all now gone. So in the offseason, Bo Bichette, re-sign Alex Bregman, Eugenia Suarez, Ketel Marte. Now for the last couple of days, Isaiah Paredes. Wake up this morning, Caleb Durbin. Now, listen, I'm going to get your report on him, and I see some of the experts talking about what this kid's all about and the true upside and the hidden pop. But we're not talking Bregman. We're not talking Devers. We're not talking some of these others. And the fact of the matter is, you have Marcelo Meyer, you have Campbell. What is this all about, Scott?
I don't know. I would tell you, Caleb Durbin is a guy that you know how they have the guy that always comes on and says that guy's a gym rat. He's one of those guys that plays and blah. He's like that. That's what he is. He's a guy that's going to give you everything he's got. Blah blah blah. People love him. Fans love him. All those kinds of things.
So we used to have one of those guys at second base. That was Dustin Pedroia.
Yeah, he's like that. He's a lot like that. But Dustin Pedroia is an all-star. This guy's not an all-star. So can he develop? I don't know. Does he have pop? Not really. I mean, I think he hit like 11 home runs last year. That's not pop as far as I'm concerned. You know, now maybe because I think he's a right-handed hitter. You know, being in a spot where maybe he can hit him over the monster or something. I don't know. I think he's a valuable player in a sense that he's like, I think he had a 2.5 WAR last year. That's a decent play, everyday player. That's what that is. His projection is 2.2 this year, but he's a mix between having a little bit of offense and having a good defense. He's a good defender, and to be honest, I think that's what Boston's looking for. They wanted a good defender. Now that package deal they got was weird because they got Monasterio too, and they don't need him. Monasterio's stupid. I don't like that guy. He's a little midget dude, and doesn't do a whole lot. But he's versatile, can play lots of places. And then on the other side, you send over Harrison, which you weren't going to use anyway, a pitcher, and what's the other guy's name? One of those other guys you sent over there. You sent back. What's his name? His name is David Hamilton. You sent David Hamilton over there. Guys aren't really going to be. I mean, they might play a little bit for the Red Sox, but they weren't, anything crazy. So, yeah, I don't. I think it's just kind of a shift of money and people, and you're taking a shot or a chance with the development of Durbin. I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. I don't think he's certainly not the caliber of guys you were talking about with Bregman and stuff like that. He's nowhere near those kind of guys, and he will never be anywhere near those kind of guys. It just doesn't have that talent. But he can defend. He can play defense, and if that's where they thought that they needed to sign a guy, then that's where they needed to sign him. That's what they did.
You could have just went out. They would have drove him there. You could have, if you were looking for a defender of third base, and you've made 1 million trades with this team. Why didn't you just go get Arenado?
I don't know. Maybe he had maybe he had a no trade clause to go. Wouldn't go to Boston. Remember, he had 75 million no trade clauses, and then he goes. He gets moved on. So it's just. Baseball's so funny and so weird, and relationships and different things, and guys you used to were coached by and developed by and stuff like that go back years and years. You don't know anything about, and sometimes that stuff matters, especially to the Arenados of the world. I think Arenado is a guy that has seen he's in the pastures of his life now. He's not a home run hitter anymore. He'll be like Durbin. He'll hit 10, maybe 11, something like that. He can still play defense. He's Durbin. That's the same kind of guy. So, I think, but he'll cost you more money, I imagine. Anyway, so anyhow, it is what it is. And I don't know. I think the more interesting signing, to be honest with you, is not the Red Sox signing. I think Marcell Ozuna to the Pirates is the biggest interesting thing because I think two things. A, I think that's a big bat for them, and then I think B, I don't know what they're going to do with him. that they have Ryan O'Hearn there for a reason to play that role because they got a first baseman in Horowitz. He's like their I don't know if people know this, but Horowitz is their best hitter. I know people are going to say, well, it's O'Neal Cruz. It's not O'Neal Cruz. He's not developed yet. It's Horowitz. Horowitz is their best player. And now you got Ryan O'Hearn and you got Marcell Ozuna trying to play DH for this team. I don't know what they're going to do. But I will say that it means no Andrew McCutchen coming back.
What about the signing over the weekend? The Yankees bite at the apple with Paul Goldschmidt.
I think that's just more of having a veteran guy that can come off the bench, do different things. From what I'm seeing so far, and those fantasy players, and I know Jeff's a big one. Look, the projections for Ben Rice are some ungodly thing. They think he's going to take off. So what they wanted, he's a left-handed hitter. They wanted a guy that can, give him a break every once in a while. Give some of these guys a break. He can play DH. He can do different things. And give Ben Rice a break every once in a while, especially with the tough lefties. And Goldschmidt can still hit tough lefties. So what value does he have? He's not a starter anymore. He knows he's not a starter. He's not a starter on this team. But a veteran presence, a good bat, if you want to call it that. It wasn't too far gone that he won the MVP maybe 4 or 5 years ago, so it's not too far back. But I don't think he is anything more than that veteran. Keep everybody calm and collected. He's on Team USA for God's sakes. So I think his value of experience helps a lot of these younger players, and Yankees don't have a lot of younger players, just like some of these other teams. But Ben Rice is one of them, and if he can mentor that kid and help that kid up here all season long, that would be extremely helpful. I think Ben Rice would listen to Paul Goldschmidt before he would listen to Marcell Ozuna, for example. So as it kind of plays out and what you're looking for and what you do, I think that was more or less what that was about. I don't think that was about, anything crazy. The New York Yankees have to survive the first couple weeks, the first month, and then they get their pitching back. But, Rodon, I think, is going to be, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before he gets to pitch. So their rotation is going to be, Fried and Schlittler and Heel, and then Weathers, who they brought in and stuff. That's what it's going to look like for the first couple of weeks. So they better hope Fried does well, and they better hope that they can hold through and their offense comes up, because you don't really want to be behind in that division and play catch up against those teams. It's just not what you want to do. So you want to be at least even. If you're a couple games back, you're a couple games back. And then all of a sudden, here comes your pitching, and here comes, Rodon, and then here comes Cole, and then here comes, whatever. So it's going to be an interesting year for the Yankees that way, to see what kind of start they get off to. I will say this. I don't usually listen to a lot of Mark DeRosa conversations, because when you see him on TV, I can't stand him. But I will say this. I listened on Sunday. I had a couple errands to run, and he was on the front office show, and they were talking to him. And there's a couple things. This Team USA that he put together for the World Baseball Classic, what was put together in a way that I don't think many of us realized it was. So obviously we know they got Aaron Judge and they got Paul Skeens, and then all these guys want to go play with those guys. But there was caveats to that. The caveats are this. These NFL, here I am, NFL boy. these Major League Baseball managers are going to tell these guys, look, this is preseason for these guys. I want this, this, and this, and this, and this out of those guys, blah, blah, blah. And you know what he said? He said, I want a team, and I want the guys that are going to play with each other, for each other. They don't go out and impress each other. And if I need a guy to pitch an inning in a third, I want him to go pitch an inning in a third. I don't care what their manager wants. So if I get a guy that manager says you can't pitch an inning in a third, I'm not going to take him. I'm going to take the guys that are going to do what I need them to do. And on offense, who's going to play, what batting order you're going to play. I need guys that are going to work within each other. And then he said, I want guys that are strong up the middle. Remember we talked about that? Well, that they got the big dumper behind the plate. That's pretty good, right? In center field, they got Pete Crow Armstrong. That's pretty good, right? So, they got great shortstops. They got great second basemen. They got guys that can play up the middle. And then he said, I wanted to know, like, are these guys going to freak out? Like Aaron, before I said it was okay to bring on Schwarber, I wanted to know if Schwarber had to bat leadoff or not. If he cared whether he batted, like if he wasn't the number one guy in the lineup, I wanted to know, because I might want to bat him fifth, or I might want to bat him third, or I might want to bat him wherever. I didn't want him to freak out. Or Aaron Judge batting second. Is that going to, you go see your batting and you're batting third, or is that going to throw your whole damn day off? If those things happen, I didn't select those players. I thought it was great. Great conversation. It was great and he said, how I picked relievers? He said, I picked relievers just looking at velocity. That's all I did. He said, in these games, I noticed that if you're below, say, 95, 94, somewhere in there, you'll get hit. If you throw the ball above that, the timing's off for these guys. You'll throw right past them. So if you can throw 96, 97, 98, there you go. You're going to get it by these guys. So I really focused on how to have these guys come in and throw hard, right? And then they were talking about, which we'll get into later. I don't need to get into today, but how the mechanics of the pitching rotations work and stuff. Because I really got to probably get in. I got to talk about rules to everybody, and everybody thinks it's an innings limit. It's not an innings limit. It's a pitch count. So the pitch counts and how that works, and some different philosophies, like what the Team USA has done versus what, say, the Dominican Republic has done, and is one better than the other one, and that kind of stuff. We'll get into that. Although I will say this, and I'm going to write some stuff up this week on some of the World Baseball Classic stuff. There's mispricing out there in the world, in the WBC. They're in pools, and Pool A. Pool A has Puerto Rico in it. And for those who don't know, that's been where Francisco Lindor has played, and that's where Carlos Correa plays. They're not playing. And they don't have the caliber of team that they've had in the past. The pitchers aren't the best. The hitters aren't the best. In fact, they're a bunch of like Punch and Judy kind of hitters. They're not power hitters at all. But now they are playing in Puerto Rico, so there is sort of that home field edge. But here's what I will tell you. They are listed as, still minus 200, minus 300 favorites to win that pool. In my breakdowns, they're not the best team in the pool. So it depends on kind of what you're looking at and how you do it. But I will tell you, Team Canada, with some of the pitching that they have, and then they've got Josh Naylor and Bo Naylor and Tyler O'Neill and quite a few. They got stars at every position too. I think that's a team that you can get great odds to either win that pool A, or B. you can get that team to come out of that pool to advance. That you have that as a betting option too. And then Cuba's in that pool. And I know people don't know a lot about Cuba, but let's say to you this way: Japan has their league. Well, the Cuban players play in the Japanese league. That's where they play. So they don't have Cuba doesn't have their own league anymore. I mean, they play in the Japanese league. They go see the Japanese pitchers. That they see all that. Well, they've got a kid that is one of the best pitchers in that side of the world, if you want to call it that. They've got a closer that throws 100 miles an hour. They don't really have a lot of major league players. Johan Moncada is going to play for them, but that's about it. And then normally they have those retread. I've been around 15-year kind of guys that hang out and they go play for Cuba and smoke cigars in the dugout and that's kind of stuff. They don't have that. They got younger guys this year. So I think you can see you're going to have value in Canada and Cuba, not in Puerto Rico. And I think if you bet against Puerto Rico and bet on Canada, Cuba, I think you'll get that. And the only other thing I'll say about World Baseball Classic right now, in terms of the big overall picture, is there is no team better than the Team United States. None is better. You can throw Dominican Republic at me all day, and I'll defeat it every time. But on paper, there is no team ever created in the World Baseball Classic better than this team.
Me and Scotty got to be talking some baseball from here on out. We have closed the book on the NFL for this season. Be doing some talks, of course, throughout the combine, or as Russell liked to say, the underwear Olympics. We'll be talking some free agency when it happens. Of course, we'll get geared up for the draft. Hopefully a couple of my friends and colleagues are ready to potentially do some stuff. Our thoughts go out to good friend, Mr. Ron Momilevsky, as well. Hopefully be doing some shows with you. Me and Scotty will figure out the schedule. I know tomorrow morning I'll bring Andrew McGinnis on. We're going to talk some NHL. They're on their 20-day break as the Olympics are going on, so we'll talk some Olympic hockey there. Unsure if Nick Hathcote will be here. College baseball starts this weekend, so we were going to do a midweek show. Have not confirmed or denied that. Going to bring back good friend and colleague, Mr. Matthew George, on Thursday. He's going to talk some NBA, which is going into the All-Star break, talk some college hoops, of course. And the NCAA insiders will be here Thursday afternoon to break down the weekend of the start of college baseball. Great season to all. Want to shout out to Mr. Saylor, of course. I'll be interested to see what Indy does moving forward as the season is complete. Hail to the Hawks. Kenneth Walker, your MVP. I can just see the Jets shaking their heads saying, Sam, that was our guy. We knew you were a star. As Sam Darnold is gone from the Jets to Carolina to San Francisco. Minnesota's going to be a real hangover morning for them. Like, geez, what did we do? But in all, the season is complete. Any closing thoughts, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as you were talking about Sam Darnold there. So the value of coaching, the value of a good coach, the value of somebody's system. And I don't want to say they're plug and play because they're not. They're a little bit more than that. But I think when you start to think about what happens in professional sports, guys that, and I don't want to call them out of the box because that's probably being too wide. But guys that have a process and a look to things that are fresh and new, guys that can think in a futuristic way of being able to run things in a certain way. Those are valuable guys. And when you have a Sam Darnold, what is he? I think he's like 6'3", right? 6'4", 6'5". He's not a little person, and he was the number 3 overall pick in the NFL. He's got an arm. He has the ability to do things that others can't do. And when you match him up with a Kubiak, for example, and you're got a guy that has a process and a system that takes advantage of things, and I say takes advantage because we talked about this in the breakdown. He's a play action guy, an emotion guy. Well, what does that do? Well, that helps your quarterback. Why does it help your quarterback? Because you help quarterback figure out what the defense is running before he got the ball snapped. That's the whole idea. It's to move your guys around. And then because he can move the guys around and do the different things that are there, that allows your quarterback then to have easy throws, easy reads, easy things. And then as he develops confidence and does different things, then he can make the hard ones. So I think we lose value, and one of these days, our lanes, our people are going to need to really get better at and I hear all the old school guys talk about stuff, and the evaluation process of these things is just off. You got to find logistical data sources to figure out this stuff, meaning that how good is this offensive coordinator? How good is this defensive coordinator? And rank them. You need to rank them in the season, because that stuff really truly does make a difference in terms of how things go. Because an NFL game isn't just about X's and O's, and everybody says X's and O's. And it's not just about numbers. It's about matchups. It's really about who's going to put their people in chess pieces, if you want to call them that, in the right spots to attack and do the things that they need to do to win these games, and have the courage to make those decisions too, because some of them aren't easy decisions to make. But spend time doing that. Spend time on who's the great offensive coordinators in this league. And when you sit there and you think about offensive coordinators, that means you got to think about head coaches like Kyle Shanahan. He's not listed as an offensive coordinator, but he is, right? McVay, he's an offensive coordinator, that kind of stuff. And defensive coordinators the same. There's head coaches that are that way. And then start ranking them. And when you start to rank them and you start to that's why Ben Johnson's so successful is where he is, because he's high caliber offensive coordinator. Anyway, food for thought.
And the final chess piece, Clint Kubiak, OC, Seattle, now the head coach of the Los Angeles Raiders. We knew that was coming anyways. We'll get a little piece of TB12, I think, part owner. A team that in the offseason, you keep in Max Crosby, but offensively, speculation is you're going to number one pick, you're drafting Mr. Mendoza. So you got your quarterback. You have Ashton Genty year 2, Brock Bowers year 3, Clint Kubiak to the Raiders, Scott.
Yeah, I think that I'm using the analogy of this. Last year, who had the most cap space to spend? New England did. And they did really well. Well, who has the most cap space to spend this year? I know the Raiders are like second, first, third, something like that. They're right up there. If they get it right in who they bring in and who they draft, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to have the same kind of turnarounds that New England did, but I will say that they'll be a lot better faster than what people are thinking that they will be, and then they can sort of build from that. So if you're a Raider fan and or you're a gambler and you see hey, season wins is 5, they're going to go over 5, and the reason they're going to go over 5 is just because of almost can't not, because of the talent level that they have to bring in. Now, of course, they got to do all that stuff. And the truth of the matter is, when have the Raiders done anything right in the last 10 years, right? I mean, they haven't done anything right, but they have a good running back. They've got a great tight end. I don't know if this Mendoza kid's the right kid or not kid, but mentally I think he's the right kid. I don't know if his arm talent's good enough. I don't know I don't know all that stuff. I'm not a talent evaluator like that. So I'm just a matchups guy, and then make bets based off of what it looks like. So So I do need to know a little bit about what the players' capabilities are, but at the same time, I don't have to draft a kid; they do, and then they got to pay him. So when I look at it, I'm like, that's your job. My job is then to go, did you make the right choice? Because I get to do that, and then I get to look at it and see what it looks like, and then kind of go from there. So yeah, I think there's a positive breath there, and I think having Tom Brady associated there is sort of a hopeful thing. I don't know how much they're going to let him do. I don't know what Kubiak wants him to do. Um, you know, he says a lot of the right things in public, and he's a motivational speaker when he talks and all that stuff. He was probably a great teammate in the locker room, but I know he's kind of an asshole too, in a sense of driving people. But that was his team. This isn't his team. This is somebody else's team, and stepping in the way and doing different things can be a problem. I'm not saying he's ever going to be that, but I am saying that every relationship has to work, and what you're looking for to get out of that relationship. So um, I think the Raiders are an interesting bunch, and I think if you really look at what New England did this past season, that's a perfect blueprint for how then you can say, hey, follow this. This is sort of what they did, but you got to be real with yourself too. That means you got to identify your issues and your flaws and your problems, and you're not going to be able to probably address all of them because you got a lot of them. So I think you got to kind of go down that road and figure that out. But I think the Raiders are set up better. I think they have a new general manager. I think that having Tom Brady there, I think all of that helps. And I don't think Mark Davis gets involved in the Raiders ownership like Al Davis did. So I think he just sits there and goes, I'm going to evaluate whether you guys do with the crap or not. And if you don't, I'm going to get rid of you and bring in, somebody else, which he does. I mean, what is it, 13 different head coaches for this team in like 14 years or something crazy like that. So anyway, I would be excited about that. I'm also kind of interested to see what this team does, because I think that they're going to have some interesting. That's a weird deal here. Like they kept Todd Bowles for some reason and fired every other coach. So now they got all new coaches, but it's not the head coach. So he's got to put together a whole new deal that way. That's weird, and trying to do all this stuff. And what are they going to do with Mike Evans and where all that kind of stuff. Now that all said, Jeff, I've turned the page, man. I'm on to round balls with stitches.
On to Cincinnati, as Bill Belichick says. Shout out to Russell Saylor. Shout out to PB, Mr. Lucky, Dr. Lance, and everyone else. A season in the books. Me and Scotty are going to transition. Scotty's already on to the World Baseball Classic and, of course, MLB. We got some big plans for everyone here for the spring and summer. We want to we will make this the number one go-to spot for baseball. Pitchers and catchers report this week. Keep an eye on my timeline to see if me and Scotty are going to talk right after this, figure out some stuff. But other than that, again, the season's complete. Congrats to Seattle. Congrats to the Patriots, of course. Runner-up. Nothing wrong with runner-up. You're the AFC champs. You got a bullseye on your back. Enjoy the Bahamas for a week to 10 days. If I was a betting man, I think by next Monday or next Wednesday, Vrabel will be back in the office trying to figure it out. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, one and only Mr. Scotty Webb at Webby20 MLB. We wish everyone a blessed day. Hope ECSI VIPs, what a week. 10-3 graded. We had on the pre-flop Seattle Super Bowl champs, Seattle plus 2,000 to beat the Patriots pre-flop. Talked about it yesterday. We had Sam Darnold plus 600 MVP. Obviously, that didn't get there, but I talked yesterday in our alert. Some add-ons. We had Kenneth Walker as the first headliner with JSN. So, again, what a week. What a football season. It's complete. It's on to the round ball with stitches, as Scotty says. Behave yourselves locally. 11 degrees still. Bundle up and stay tuned.